Welcome back to RealHouseDIY. We've been working on the Ditra floor heating system for my mudroom. Today we're going to be installing the heating cable and the 2 temperature sensors. You need your heating cable and your 2 temperature sensors. Now you only need 1 temperature sensor for the system to work. The second one you install and keep as a spare. You'll want tools such as this float for pressing the heating cable between the studs but without damaging the heating cable. Then down here at the floor where you removed about 6 inches of the membrane and any thin set, you're going to have that cold splice from the heating cable. You're going to need to glue that down some way. They recommend hot glue. And you can see I already have some pull strings through the conduit going up to the location of the thermostat. I have another video on my channel where I do this installation. I'll show you how to put these pull strings in the conduit. Next thing, I fish the cold lead up through my conduit. So I'm going to wrap this with electrical tape to my pull string. I've got that coming up here at the top of the box. So I'll continue to pull that cold lead up until my cold lead splice right here is right at the position where I want it. Right about there. Next, now that I'm done pulling the wire, I'm not going to be moving this conduit around anymore. Get that in the position that I want. Behind the face of the drywall here, I have a clamp. I'll get that connected and secure in place. So it's perfect, that's nice and secure. It's behind the face of the drywall. So after I get this one in place, after tiling, get my baseboard, and that won't be in the way. And still have a little bit of flexibility to move the splice right here. And you can see the splice is also below the level of the membrane, so it won't interfere with your tile installation. Have a little bit of a gap right there. So next they want you to secure this. I'm going to use hot glue as a recommendation in the installation instruction. I'll just hold this down until the glue dries. Now I'm just going straight up the wall to my thermostat location. And as you can see, they give you a lot of extra lead on that cold lead, maybe 2 feet. You don't need all of this, and I don't really want it all crushed back there in the box. So you can shorten this when you're ready to install the thermostat. You'll just want to move your label further down the wire. And you can reattach this crimp for the ground connection further down if you're going to reuse that. Next, I'm going to start embedding this heating cable into the Ditra membrane. I'm using the standard 3 stud spacing. You can also use an alternating 3-2-3 stud spacing. But back when you selected the length of your cable on the Schuler website, you probably entered which stud spacing you were planning to use, because that helped determine the length of the cable that you needed. For myself, this is a mudroom, it's not a bathroom, so I don't have any pipes or drains. I do want to stay 2 inches away from all the wall perimeters. And any places where you're planning to have a fixed cabinet, you're not going to put the heating cable under those. So for the most part, I'm just going to be running this back and forth through the floor all the way back. The temperature sensors, you need to have these running through 3 stud spacing. So I'm planning to have that come out of the wall right here. I just need to plan while I'm routing the heating cable a way for these temperature sensors to come out into the floor. I'll put these temperature sensors somewhere out in the middle of the floor, somewhere where I'm not planning to have a floor covering. So I may have a mat on the floor right at the door, so I wouldn't put the temperature sensor there. But then walking in from the front door, I'm gonna have a clear space right through to the hallway. So right around here would be a perfect spot to have the floor temperature sensors. And I really don't have any tricky routing except right at the start here. Probably gonna turn it this way, have it go through this threshold area, go 3 stud spaces over, come back, turn another 3, and then I'll just continue up and back all the way down. Anywhere where you have some thin set, right where you need to route the cable. I'll carefully remove that. So even though the cable did fit here with that bit of thin set sticking up, it made the cable stick up a tiny bit up over the top layer of the membrane. So we're about halfway done. You can see I did 3-2-3 stud spacing in a couple spots, particularly here where I wanted to avoid these spots where I had 2 of the membranes meeting. You can see I definitely wouldn't have been able to fit the heating cable straight through here. The stud spacing is slightly out too far. I did something similar right here to avoid this one. And now I've found the halfway mark of the cable, which I did not realize that was going to be there. So I'm going to go take a couple quick measurements. We'll see how we're doing. Okay, so I know the doorway that's right in the center of the room. Also planning about 1 foot out, be a fixed cabinet right here. So about here, say 13.5 feet. And we're at about 6'3", so I have maybe about 6 inches or so to spare. So as I get closer to the end, I might want to switch to a couple more of those 2 stud spacings to get to stop right where my fixed cabinet is planned to start. So I got to the end, and this end connection here, this is a little bit thicker. It goes right above the level of the membrane, so I have to be careful about that during the tile installation. This worked out well with those 2 stud spacings. I have them evenly separated 4 times throughout the project here. Then right here, we're gonna have a seating bench fixed in place, so we ended it right at the right spot. So you're sitting on the bench, you have your feet on the warm part of the floor, and now we can go run the temperature sensors. Next, I'm following the same process for the temperature sensor wires. I have the 2 wires taped together to my pull string. I'm gonna feed those up through the conduit. Next, for placement of these temperature sensors, they say at least out 12 inches, ideally 24 inches, or centered somewhere in the room, but away from places where you might have a floor mat or a place where pets might be lying down. You also want it out of direct sunlight. Further down towards these windows back here, I will have direct sunlight further back here, so I don't want to go too far into the room. Might also have a floor mat over here near the door. So I'm actually going to move one of them somewhere right in this central area here, where it's going to be a walkway. Very confident nothing will ever be stationary in this location. So I'm going to start by placing this where I want it, and then I'll move the wire back through the studs, and then whatever's left over, I'll be pulling that up further through the conduit. Now for installing a temperature sensor, first thing you want to do is unravel the wire, because a lot of this wire you're not going to use, or you might not use. In that case, you're going to want to be able to pull it up through the conduit, and you don't want to get any kinks in that as you're pulling it up, so make that nice and straight. And then some people, what they do, they cut a line right in the middle of a stud so you can insert the temperature sensor at an angle. But you don't need to do that. You can also just go straight in between 2 studs, and that holds in place really nicely right in the middle of 3 stud configuration. Don't put this in the middle of 2 stud. I think there are some cases where you can put in the middle of the 2 stud, but not for this case where I'm doing tile flooring. Then, because this wire is thinner than the heating cable, they say at least every 3 studs you need to jog the wire, and really all it does is help hold it in place. So I'll do that all the way back to where it enters the conduit. Right there, that looks pretty good. I'll do something similar for the next temperature sensor. Then the second temperature sensor I'm putting right here. Again, where someone's gonna be walking, we're not gonna put anything fixed right here. No floor mat. Hopefully no pets will be lying down right here. Okay, so that routing is done. Now I can pull out that excess wiring up through the conduit. There's my 2 temperature sensors in place. Got them routed, going right into the conduit. Got this conduit secured in place as well. So these are nice and fixed. Any pulling on that conduit won't impact the wires. Up here at the thermostat location, I left all these wires here. I'll do that later on after the flooring is all done. when I'm installing the thermostat. It's definitely much more wire than you need, but it's okay to cut those all back to the length that you want. I went ahead and got those test measurements that I needed on the ends of the wires after the wires are installed, and they're still good. And one last thing that you want to check before you install your tile is to check that the wire is fully embedded everywhere. So even though you're checking with the float to get it snapped in place, you will come across 1 or 2 bumps in the wire that did not get between the studs. You want to fix that now. Then you just want to be careful when you're tiling. You do want to fill all these empty spaces between the studs. So start your thin set flat up to the level of the studs, and then go right from there with the notch trowel to install your tile. So from here, do it all in one go, filling up the spaces between the studs as you tile. Now I'm not getting right to the tile today. I'll probably do that tomorrow. In the meantime, make sure you have this room closed off so no one will mess it up. Since this here is a front door, people will still be coming in and out. I'm going to roll out a big mat here that'll help protect those wires. Hope you found this video helpful, and thanks for watching.